This debate is far from over. Some say a government bailout is a good idea. Others absolutely hate it. Either way, it's a debate Americans have been and continue to be passionate about. To articulate two very different views on the bailout story, we invited back Stephen Lieb, president of Lieb Capital Management, and Peter Schiff, president of Euro Pacific Capital and author of the new book, The Little Book of Bull Moves in Bear Markets. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Christine.
The bailout. I've been told that we need it. We need it because if we don't have it, we don't know what kind of horrific economy we face. You disagree?
I disagree. And remember, the people who are telling us that we need these bailouts are the same people that were telling us the economy was in great shape just a few months ago or a few years ago. You know, unfortunately, and I watched that debate the other day, the vice presidential debate, and both of these candidates are blaming these problems on Wall Street greed, on predatory lending, on lack of regulation. But the reality is, all this happened. Wall Street, the mortgage community, they were just playing the hand the government dealt them. This is the government problem. It was the most irresponsible monetary policy in U.S. history under Greenspan. It was the moral hazards of Fannie and Freddie. It was our tax code that encouraged reckless gambling on real estate.
But the house is on fire now.
Right. Yes,
we have
exactly.
to put the fire out.
Christine, that's another debate. Who caused it? I mean, there were a lot of people that caused it, and I certainly don't disagree with Peter when he says the government was part of the cause. But right now, the House is on fire, and that has happened. And just to give you one consequence of how serious this situation could be, take the fertilizer stocks. I mean, I'm talking real micro stuff here. Yesterday, or earlier this week, fertilizer companies fell 30 and 40%. You know why they fell that much? Not because demand for food is falling off a cliff. There's 2 billion people in this world that are living on $2 a day and near starvation. The reason fertilizers fell that much is people fear farmers can't get credit to grow their crop. And that means if we don't do something quick, you could have mass starvation, not just in this country, all over the globe.
Steve, I agree with you. The house is on fire, but the government's just going to pour gasoline on it. If we want the fire to go out, we need to let the free market work.
No, the free market right now, and this is what the stock market is telling us, which is probably as free as you possibly can get in this world today, is that if we don't do something, farmers won't be able to grow their crops, and the world will starve.
But the government isn't going to help farmers grow their crops. All they have is a printing press.
There are a lot of people who don't believe in the doomsday. They don't know what this doomsday scenario is everyone's so worried about. Alice Rivlin, the former vice chair of the Fed, she put it very eloquently this week. She said, look, this is a lot like anticipating a nuclear war. You don't know what the chances are, but you do everything you can to avoid it. Shouldn't it be the responsibility of the federal government to make sure that even though it might have caused the problems, we have to mitigate disasters?
It's not their responsibility, not legally, and they can't do anything about it. The government doesn't provide credit, they provide inflation. Credit comes from savings.
Peter,
you've got to start saving.
Let me make one point. Peter talks against 2 points. One, when we thought the bailout was in jeopardy, the market dropped $1 trillion, more than the value of the bailout. The other thing I'm very fearful of, and this I agree with Peter, I don't like the government either, but I would rather give the government a little control now rather than complete control later on. Just a little history lesson. Let me just finish a second, Peter.
Let him finish.
Peter, please let me just finish, because I'm not really disagreeing with you. What I don't want to see happen is an unemployment fall to 25%, and we pave the way for another FDR. Except this time we may not be so lucky. We may not get FDR. We may get a guy like Lindbergh who wants to be dictator. And that's the kind of thing that Alice Rivlin talks about. That's the doomsday scenario where the government totally seizes control. Little control now in exchange for massive control later.
This week there was this emergency conference call among corporate treasurers who got on this call to talk about how banks were holding on to the money. They weren't letting them borrow so that they could do things like buy raw materials, so they could do things like pay their payroll. How do you, if we just let the market work it out, what happens to companies and people?
It's not that the banks are holding on to the money. The money's not there anymore because they've blown their capital on bad loans. Remember, we can only loan out money that somebody saves. And if we blow our stock of savings, there's no more credit. That's the problem. And the government can't replace the credit with a printing press. And the real problem is going to be with this bailout. It's not going to work. The situation is going to get worse. The stock market's going to keep falling. Real estate prices are going to keep falling. And we're going to get a bigger bailout. So the government's going to take more power. And they're going to create more damage.
However much gut power the government needs to control, and I don't even disagree with Peter, this may not be enough. However much power the government takes right now, however much money they have to put in the system, is much more preferable than letting the government have complete control over our economy. Peter, I don't want to be saluting a dictator in this country, but that's what you're advocating. That's what you're advocating.
Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Stick around because you're coming back right after this break. Wait until you see what was said about the economy.
Our financial institutions are strong. Our investment banks are strong. Our banks are strong.
That was then a surprising look back at what we were told about the economy before the Wall Street crisis. The populist uprising against the Washington bailout has its roots in a deep distrust of the Bush administration, which for months said the economy was fine, and distrust of Congress, who, after all, has oversight of the financial services industry. The language about what's happening in the capital markets and the economy has changed dramatically in the last 2 weeks. Listen.
Government action in the...
It's about as dire as a president can get on the economy.
We're facing a choice between action and the real prospect of economic hardship for millions of Americans.
This from an administration that for months said the economy was vibrant, the financial system strong. The president didn't acknowledge, quote, storm clouds until last December. By then, it was raining.
There's definitely some storm clouds and concerns, but the underpinning is good. And we'll work our way through this period.
Then, with each disastrous job report or capital market crisis, an upbeat assessment. In January.
Our economy's flexible. It is resilient.
In February, the president surprised by spiking gas prices.
What did you just say? You're predicting $4 a gallon gas? Number. That's interesting. I hadn't heard that.
In March, Bear Stearns was in a death spiral, and the Fed brokered its sale.
We're in challenging times. But another thing is for certain that we've taken strong and decisive action.
Our financial institutions are strong. Our investment banks are strong. Our banks are strong. They're going to be strong for many, many years.
In July, IndyMac Bank failed.
I believe we will come through this challenge stronger than ever before.
The three trying to sell this $700 billion rescue didn't see it coming. The Treasury Secretary told NPR last year of the global economy.
It's as strong as I've seen it any time during my business career.
And again last October.
This is happening against the backdrop of an economy that, which in other respects is very solid. So far, there's very little evidence that it's bleeding over into other areas.
As the subprime crisis devolved early last year, the Fed chief.
We do not expect significant spillovers in the subprime market to the rest of the economy or to the financial system.
And now?
This plan is an emergency plan to put out a fire, to resolve a serious crisis which has real Main Street implications.
All right, back with us, Stephen Lieb of Lieb Capital Management and Peter Schiff of Euro Pacific Capital. Gentlemen, you're watching the piece. What do you think?
Well, I mean, these are the guys we want to now turn over and talk about the inmates running the asylum. These guys were in denial the whole way. They don't understand the fundamentals of economics. They have no idea why we're in this mess. In fact, they're the ones that lit the fire. They're not going to put it out.
Were they in denial, or they just no one really got it that this was going to
I think it's the latter. I mean, I have to say, Christine, after hearing that sequence of statements, Peter's argument appeals to me a little bit more, but not enough. I still fervently disagree. I mean, yes, this was a terrible mess, and what everybody missed had to do with the fact that we have 600 trillion, half a quadrillion derivatives out there.
Right.
And the complexity of this system is beyond the understanding of anybody. And all we really know at this point, in order to get ourselves out of it, we do need a lot of money. A lot of people missed it. It was very complicated.
But how could you miss it? It was the elephant in the living room.
No,
I mean,
it wasn't.
I wrote a book that laid it out cold. I mean, how could you say, either they were lying to us or they're incompetent. But either way, we don't want them controlling our economy.
Whatever they were, and I admit there's blame to go around for a lot of people. I mean, you said before 1% interest rates was a terrible mistake. I agree with you. But we're here today. The building has collapsed.
But look at how
farmers will not get mortgage money.
Paulson just a little over a year ago said it was the best global business environment of his business career.
Right.
And then how quickly we're trying to rebuild the entire financial system.
It was an illusion based on debt.
But doesn't that tell you that things get, as Bernanke wrote in his papers, you know, as an academic, the financial accelerator. Once the financial accelerator starts,
that's
you've
what
got to go
Bernanke
quick.
does see right now is that the best decisions I've ever made in my career as a Wall Street investor, and I've been pretty good, Christine, is to admit that I'm wrong. Dead wrong, get out, go out, sell it, and do something else. And I think Bernanke has a brilliant record. He has studied the Depression probably in greater detail than anyone else. Oh, Peter, that really is foolish on your part. No, it is. To call someone who spent his entire life studying something clueless.
He wasted his time.
No,
he is clueless.
Peter,
he doesn't understand it at all.
Well, Peter, come on. You can't be the only guy right in the room.
No, but I know that he's wrong.
Well, you cannot. No, I don't think he is wrong.
He's dead wrong.
Let's talk about
what he is saying.
Let's agree on something here about going forward. I think we both agree here that there has to be more, right? I mean, I'm hearing again and again that this bailout is not the end of it.
Absolutely, there may have to be more. But Christine, what we have to realize right now, we are not in a world with great alternatives. The 90s are dead, completely buried. We have to choose between whether or not we want to eat or whether or not we're willing to have inflation. I'd rather eat
between freedom and socialism, between capitalism and essentially.
No, because Peter, your plan. I agree with you. I'd much rather have freedom. I think you make a good point. But what you're advocating will give us let me finish. What you're advocating will give the government not just a little control, complete control, just like the 1930s.
You want them to have control.
No,
I want them to get out of the way.
I don't want them to have control. I'd rather give them a little control now, put a little money in the system now, so that if we don't get 25 or 30% unemployment, look what happened during the Depression.
I want to ask you both quickly, very quickly. What does the world look like without a bailout? What does it look like with a bailout?
Right,
quickly.
Without a bailout,
my life, my economy.
Look, without a bailout, look, there's a price to pay for all this extravagance. We've had a phony economy based on debt and consumption. We're going to have a terrible recession. It's going to be bad. But this bailout is going to make it worse. It's going to turn it into a hyperinflationary depression, and it's going to kill the value of our money, and we're going to have a real crisis on our hands, and there's going to be no way out.
I want to sort of follow up what you said. Things happen very fast. If we don't have a bailout, the market went down 8% or so on Monday. Those kinds of declines will continue. Credit will dry up for farmers. We'll have 30-40% unemployment like that. And then we'll have total government control of this economy. A dictatorship, maybe.
Stephen Lee, Peter Schiff, thank you so much. You can see the passion behind the debate, and you can see the very, very big, important issues behind the debate about what's happening in our economy right now. When Wall Street panics, you have to be concerned about your money, but you can protect it. We'll show you how next.